Welcome to Hallway Conversations with Matt and Dave. We've both been teaching for quite a while now, but we still have plenty of questions about education. And this podcast is our place for thinking out loud together about topics that we think are important for Christian educators to consider. Welcome to the conversation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hallway Conversations with Matt and Dave. My name is Matt Beamers.
And I'm Dave Mulder.
We want to thank you once again for allowing us to be here with you. And we want to thank you for joining us in the hallway. Each week, one of us brings a question, and we try to think creatively together about it in the context of Christian education. And we hope our conversation might do for you what it's done for us, which is provide space for us to learn and reflect on our practice while encouraging each other in our professional and even our personal life. We've actually become friends as we've worked our way through this.
Who knew?
And if we can make you smile or chuckle along the way once in a while, that's even better. So Dave, earlier this week I was thinking, it feels randomly now, about 1 Corinthians 12, where Paul talks about the different gifts and the foot can't say to the hand, I don't need you, or the American can't say to the Canadian, I don't need you. Like, that's in my own translation.
That's right.
But that no matter what your gifts, you belong to the body. And just to give you a context, I was thinking about this when I was thinking about an undergrad class that I teach. And they're really diverse in terms of their giftedness and how yet they all belong to the body. Like, they're all contributing members of our class. And if one of them even misses a class, I always feel like we're less than without them. Yeah. In that class, I've got players on the basketball and softball and track team, people who sing and dance and play instruments, and some who volunteer with different organizations. And they're amazing gifts. And they're amazing students. Like, they're incredible. And right at the end of, I was thinking about them, because right at the end of chapter 12, it says, I will show you the most excellent way. And Paul then, launches into this famous passage about love, faith, and hope, and that they remain. And now my question is going to be a little different, despite this preamble. Okay, it's not going to be about gifts, and it's not going to be about faith, hope, and love, although maybe that is actually part of it. But when I was thinking about that passage, I got stuck on the word excellent. And I actually found myself earlier this week Googling Christian schools that have excellence in their mission statement. And there's a lot of them.
Ooh,
You'd be surprised. So I'll just give you a couple of examples. And I'm not, these are great mission statements. They're wonderful. So one of them says their mission is to be a Christian school of influence characterized by academic excellence and caring community. Another one said to provide an excellent educational experience from a biblical worldview in order to produce the next generation of well-rounded servant leaders, right? Like, who doesn't want that for their children? Another one said, our goal is to build disciples and inspire academic excellence through biblically based education. And another one, after a few sentences, says, we want to be a place where academic excellence is provided in a Christian environment. So that's a long preamble for our hallway conversation. So in the spirit of not being opposed to excellence, because seriously, who wants to be that guy? And I mean that. And this is going to sound like a sharp-elbowed question, but it's not meant to be. And it's not a leading question. So this is a legitimate wonder. Are we in danger, or have we made an idol of excellence in Christian schools?
Oh, man.
And you can't answer yes or no, because that would make for a very short podcast.
Nope. See you next time.
No, that's right. It was a good run, folks.
Oh, boy. Oh, man. Excellence and idol. It's so interesting hearing that series of mission statements, and like that excellence is maybe a word that you would just kind of gloss over and say, well, of course, a Christian school, we're going to try to be excellent. Why would we not, right? Isn't that like part of our living out the cultural mandates and the Great Commandment and the Great Commission, right? That we should do these things with excellence. But your question, the way you framed it around idolatry, that really hit me. And I guess I'm thinking of this in light of a small group I was part of at our church years and years ago. And we read, Timothy Keller has a fantastic book called Counterfeit Gods. And I highly recommend this book to all of our listeners. It's a short little book, but I'm not overstating it to say it changed the way I think about idolatry. Wow. And one of the things that Keller says in the book is, his basic idea of what is an idol. It's you're taking a good thing and you're elevating it to become an ultimate thing. You're making a good thing an ultimate thing. And I guess I'm thinking about that in light of the way you framed this question around idolatry. Like, I want an excellent education for my students. I want an excellent education for my kids.
Yeah, who
right?
doesn't want that?
That's what we desire. No one wants a mediocre teacher for their kid.
No
Right?
kid.
We want an excellent teacher. Right?
Absolutely.
And so my wondering then is, I think excellence is a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it is a good thing.
Yeah.
But are we elevating it then to make it an ultimate thing? That is a fundamental question.
As I wondered about this, I found myself thinking about when I was an elementary school principal. I had the privilege of interviewing parents, and
Oh yeah.
quite honestly, it was one of the favorite parts of my job to be able
I
to
bet.
share the mission and vision of the school where I was at. And one of the questions I would often ask parents is, like what brings you to our school?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you thinking about our school? And there was all kinds of, hey, the arts, the academics, the athletics. We've heard these are good things. And I would follow up that with often saying, for sure, that's all true. Like, what's your deep hope among all hopes for your child's education?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't sit here and say that I don't want to use the word never, but I have a hard time recalling any parents who said their deep hope for their children was excellence. And that's not to say it wasn't like that. They didn't want that. But if you think about, hey, what's your deepest hope for your school, for your child's education, for a classroom? And so what I found interesting then is if I think about, those mission and vision statements, I think I've said before, I liken a mission and vision statement to a promise statement, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
sort of, this is what we're on about. And when I think of the word excellence, my question that comes out of that then is when we're promising that, what are we promising?
Right.
Like what are we promising? And part of that is because, quite honestly, Dave, I'm not always sure what the word excellence means anymore. So maybe that's part of the struggle. And so that could be all on me, but that's a legitimate struggle for me.
I think you're asking an important question by saying that. We need to know what it is. Like, let's define this thing, right? Because if you're going to try to operationalize excellence in your school's policies and programs, then you kind of have to know what it is that we're actually grappling with. And so I don't know. One of the things that I'm wondering about now when I hear excellence, and as I've been thinking about this, I think a lot of schools in today's school culture would equate excellence with rigor, right? And making a connection there at least. And I'm not sure that they're the same things, but I think that's maybe a valid way of making a connection. But I wonder that, like, okay, I heard it said one time in a professional development session. I wish I knew who said this because I'd like to cite the source for it. But the question was raised by this presenter: where do you hear the word rigor in the world today? And it's usually either in the context of education reform,
True.
or when you're talking about dead things.
That's not good.
Rigor mortis, right? And that was an indictment for me hearing that, because I've always kind of thought, well, I want a rigorous classroom practice. I want high levels of rigor. I want students to be working hard, learning a lot. Well, even rigor. What do we mean by that? And I guess I've settled for the idea of rigor in my mind is I want it to be appropriately challenging for my students. That's what I think of as rigor. So is that the same as excellence then, right? If an excellent education is going to be appropriately challenging for my students? And I guess I'm thinking about this because schools are primarily academic institutions, right? That's their primary sphere in society.
Well, that's why we exist. Like let's not kid ourselves. This is a place of learning. Like that is one of the learning targets.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Right.
And if it's not, then we also have issues.
That's right. Right. Seriously though.
No,
right.
for sure.
But I'm thinking about this in the context of Christian educators, and so is our picture of what education is it more than just academic, right? Yeah. To become an educated person, is that more than just academic excellence? And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But I don't have this fully formed yet.
No, as you're talking, I can't help but so I'm thinking about two things. I'm thinking about a book I read many years ago, The Idols of Our Time. This was years ago. And that's why my wonderment is sort of are we in danger of excellence kind of becoming an idol of our time? Like you say, where we are elevating it beyond something, we're giving it more weight than we should. I just wonder about that. I notice how often we use it. I wonder about it. I'm not always sure what it means. And then I'm thinking about some wonderful books where I think about, Woltersdorf's Educating for Shalom, Educating for Life. I'm thinking about a mission statement, Educating for Wholeness. I'm thinking about Harold Van Brummelen, Educating for Responsive Discipleship. And if I think about a deep, what's my deep hope now? I'm speaking as a dad and as a teacher, I guess, to think about the students, or what kind of classroom do I want my children. And again, it's not that I don't want excellence for them. But I guess what I'm wondering is, in what context do I want excellence? And to what end do I want excellence? Like, what's the end goal here? And so I guess as you're talking and listening, I'm thinking about those words, and I'm wondering if we're educating like for shalom, for life, for wholeness, for responsive discipleship, if we're educating for gratitude, for faithfulness. I wonder if that becomes our deep hope, if out of that comes excellence. Like, do those things well. Focus on those things. Allow those things to be your deep hope. And if you do those well, you will be providing an excellent education, right? Because to hear about like academic excellence, again, who's opposed to that?
Right.
I guess I would be, depending on how you're getting there. But in general, like, I am, of course we want that. But I also feel like I don't just want that in academics,
Right.
Like, and so I feel like I wonder if we're falling short then as educations that have Christ at the center, where we're like, no, we want, if we have all those other things, like I said, then maybe that's the excellent way. Maybe that's how we show students a more excellent way. I don't know, like when you think about that in your class, Dave, if you think about excellence, like how do you balance that tension of sort of excellence versus faithfulness and gratitude and the wonder of God's creation? I don't know if you can, that's a tough question for me to put you on the spot with.
No, I'm glad that you asked that, though, because as you were sharing that, this has me thinking about the bigger question, like what is the goal of becoming educated? Like what do we hope for? I love that language of deep hope, but what is my deep hope for my students? What is my deep hope for this institution that I'm serving in? What is my deep hope for myself as a teacher, right? And I probably wouldn't answer that question with excellence. I don't know that that's the way I would frame it, right?
Even though you're not opposed to it.
No, but that's probably not the word that would pop to mind for me, right? And I guess I'm coming back to, we've talked before about this idea of education. Education is more than information, right? It's about formation. Who are our students becoming? And for us as educators, that we have the opportunity to walk alongside them, and we have a real opportunity to shape the kinds of people they become. And if education is formation, well, then I want it to be about things like gratitude and faithfulness, and I want them to grow as disciples. I feel like those are the kinds of things that we ought to be about as Christian educators.
Yeah, I'm suddenly thinking about, we probably talk every podcast. We probably use John Van Dyke's name every podcast. And so he's made such a big impact on both of our lives and our understanding of education. We'll be eternally grateful to him for that. But I often think about, he talks about, like the purpose of education, or like this idea, what's the primary role of a teacher, even in a Christian classroom. And he uses the words like to guide, to unfold, to enable. And so again, I think in guiding students, right? Like when we guide students, we're saying, follow us. We'll show you the way, not just academically, but in how we live our lives as Jesus followers, right? And so when we do that, I think we are trying to, when we guide them in the way of Jesus, and try to point them towards the North Star when, like when they're going a little bit of east and west, to say, hey, we're going that way. I think we're trying to show them an excellent way, or when we unfold the curriculum to help them understand things they didn't understand before, that did not know. We're showing them the wonders and excellence of God's creation, and the different topics that we discuss as we go through a class. And then I think about, like, we're enabling them, right, for this responsive discipleship to contribute to the common good. The place we serve at uses the phrase serviceable insight, which I love, actually. It's such a beautiful phrase as well. And so, again, I wonder if in doing those things well, we are showing students a most excellent way. We are having academic excellence, so to speak.
Yeah.
But through, like you say, through these formative experiences in the classroom. Dave, as we're talking, I'm suddenly even thinking about homework.
Yeah.
And where this fits in this conversation, which so just hear me out for a second.
This is going to be a good one.
Like I was thinking about, we give students, hopefully, opportunities to retake a test. Or we do, I've seen teachers do multiple drafts, and not just one, but multiple drafts, say, of a writing assignment.
Sure. Yep.
And in a sense, that is a desire for excellence, right? But it's a desire, in the end, to improve their learning. So I'm even thinking about, I don't know, like I know you think a lot about homework, but is there a tie-in sort of to homework and this concept of excellence?
Well, I think this is the whole idea, right? If we're serious about learning, then it takes multiple attempts in learning. Almost anything that really matters that we want students to take away with, they should have multiple attempts, right? And so this idea that they can take a good swing at it and get feedback, and then have another go at it and get more feedback. And like that kind of process of refinement, hopefully then you do wind up with an excellent final product, right? That you're demonstrating deep understanding of something. And is that a way of thinking of excellence?
Yeah, and it makes me think then, if we are on about excellence, or whatever word we want to use, just how actually important it is to give our students that feedback. Right? To simply say, here's the best I did, and to give no feedback, isn't helpful. It doesn't help. And if we're in the end, it's about helping students with their learning. How are we, even in their learning, helping them be more excellent, right? To simply give it back and, well, I have no idea why I got a B. And I've done that, trust me. I have not helped my students pursue excellence in their learning. But it just makes me it makes me think about, and we could keep going, because now I have all kinds of wonderings in my head, even about pedagogy, about assessment, about homework. But I do think in the end is to wonder, like what is the end goal of even an assignment, and what's our role in that, in helping students, like I said, pursue excellence in their work.
Because we want students to achieve at high levels, right? That's and I guess I'm thinking in the same sense, right? So what does it mean for me to be an excellent teacher? Is that something I'm striving for? I mean, in my heart of hearts, I want to be excellent at my craft, but is there a dark side to that too? I guess that's this whole conversation, really, right? Like discerning those idols. What are we elevating, and at what cost?
Yeah, it suddenly makes me also think about, Dave, like you often have talked about education as formation, which I so appreciate, and I think about that more than you want to know. But it does make me then think about how have we formed our students in terms of associating excellence with high grades,
right?
Like that to say, on the one hand, we want to give you multiple opportunities and multiple drafts to improve your learning. And yet also sometimes to weigh that with, I got 98%, which I never did in high school, but I got 98% on this assignment. And for some students, feeling the anxiety that that's not good enough. Right. And so I sometimes wonder if the language of excellence, in terms of education as formation, is forming our students to believe that perfection is sort of the standard, that it is either excellent, it is either perfect, or it's not good enough. And I feel that tension sometimes as a teacher, because Because on the one hand, we want students to work and learn to the best of their ability. And yet on the other hand, there's times where you want to say to students, I want to release you. This is good enough. And that doesn't mean mediocre.
Right.
But let's also not make an idol of grades, which I wonder if excellence promotes unknowingly sometimes.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think in the end, it's a good reminder for me that yeah, in the pursuit of excellence, we can be definitely going towards the cross, towards the way God intended it to be. So I in no way, like even in reading these mission and vision statements, which I do genuinely find compelling, is again, it comes back to me, I guess, to think about how do we make sure we give things the proper weight. And if I think about that deep hope language, right, to say in the end, if education is formation, how are we forming our students? How are we, I think the goal for many Christian schools is to have their students to be a peculiar people
Amen.
in the world, right? To be like, there's something different about that person. And maybe excellence is peculiar, although I know it's important to a lot of people. So maybe it's one of the things that we can be on about in Christian schools. But is it the deepest end all be all for us? I like that idea of educating in the end for shalom, for right relationships, as Woltersdorf talks about, of educating for wholeness, for gratitude, for responsive discipleship, and trusting if we do those well with the gifts that God has given us, in the end, that will actually be the most excellent way. Friends, we know your time is valuable, and we want to thank you for joining us today in the hallway. We have a long list of topics to talk about. We want to know what hallway conversations you would like to hear. And if you have ideas or questions or feedback, or just simply want to share what hallway conversations you're having, please email us at hallwayconvospod@gmail.com. That's hallwayconvospod@gmail.com. We just want to say thank you for the good, God-delighting work that you are doing in your schools and communities. We are truly thankful for you. And as you go into this week, we just want to wish upon you, or to say to you that may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace, and give you peace, and give you peace. Amen. Have a good week, everyone.
Have a great week.
Thank you.
This podcast was quite literally dreamed up by Matt and Dave during one of their hallway conversations. Our music was created by Ethan Mulder. Hallway Conversations is an independent podcast created and produced by Dave Mulder and Matt Beamers. Thanks for listening.